reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. MMO Reporter's PAX 2012 coverage is brought to you by Guild Launch. Slay more dragons with Guild Launch.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's slide. We are bored. Sweet. No, we're not. We're bored of time sinkers. We're bored of being a sidekick. We're bored of 1, 2, 3, 4 combats. Perhaps most of all, we're so and dwarves and orcs. I've slayed enough dragons to last a lifetime. It is time for something new. In fact, we think it's time for action. Yeah. We are here to revolutionize the free-to-play MMO.
Thank God.
Now, you're going to be asking, who the heck are we? Well, the answer is we are Gazillion Entertainment. We're a Bay Area-based development studio made up of a whole bunch of different talented people.
Go Giants!
Yeah, thank you. We have some experience with Marvel because we made a game called Marvel Superhero Squad Online, which is live right now. If you haven't played it, you should give it a go. All of your favorite Marvel heroes are there. But Marvel Superhero Squad Online is obviously aimed at a younger audience than Marvel heroes. So we've been working for the last couple of years on something a little bit more adult. My name is Stephen Reid. I am the Director of Community and Customer Support at Gazillion. I'm also the Master of Ceremonies and also a Master of Magic, because I know how to do the special hands. With me up on this stage here, first of all we have David Brevik, President and COO of Gazillion. You may have read some stuff on the internet recently about David. I'm just here to assure you that David is in no way a loser of any kind. David is one of the co-creators of the legendary Diablo franchise. So we're extremely glad. On his right, we have Matt Group. He's also our voiceover wrangler, and in case you haven't guessed, quite a dog lover. To his right, we have Josh Book, who is our art director, and also our resident giant man, because he's about 12 foot tall. And on his right, we have TQ Jefferson, who is the vice president of the games at Marvel Entertainment. He's the man who keeps us honest, makes sure that we're making the best MMO that's possible. But there is one extra special guest that we have here today, and a man that I'm extremely excited to introduce to you. It took probably the most part of the panel prep to get these slides together, because you're going to see that this guy has quite a history with the Marvel franchise. Amongst many other things, he's been responsible for arguably reinventing Spider-Man, not once, but actually twice. Once in 2000 or so with Ultimate Spider-Man, and then again with Ultimate Spider-Man again, when he reinvented the character to become Miles Morales. And then he did what everyone said was impossible. He put Miles Morales in with the Spider-Man from what we like to call the 616 universe. At the same time, he completely destroyed and then reinvented from the ground up the Avengers franchise, writing just about every Avengers you care to name in the past 10 or so years, and arguably putting them on the map and setting them up to become one of the biggest grossing film franchises of all time. Along the way, and apparently in his spare time, he wrote some of Marvel's biggest event stories, including House of M, Secret Invasion, Siege, and becoming part of the brain trust that put together A vs. X, Avengers vs. X-Men. And again, in his copious spare time, he managed to reinvent and reintroduce some characters that we may have known and loved from the late 70s, early 80s, including Moon Knight, Spider-Woman, and Luke Cage.
I love Moon Knight!
And now he's back at the forefront of the Marvel Universe, reinventing the X-Men in all new X-Men, which is part of the Marvel Now initiative coming later this year. Now, some of you may know this, but he has been in essentially con retirement for quite a while now. In fact, him coming out of retirement is such a big deal that people write news stories about it. But luckily for us, he shaved his beard and clipped his toenails and came out to see us. The truth that we all know is that the reality is that we've kept him locked up playing Marvel heroes. That is when he's not berating Matt Groom. His name, of course, is Brian Michael Bendis, and please give him a thundering, rousing welcome here today.
Thank you for all those slides.
It took me a really long time. You've just written everything.
I'm sorry. All you needed was Moon Knight, according to the audience.
Yeah. Put Moon Knight in game. All right, so a couple of years ago, maybe I guess 3 years ago now, the Gazillion team sat down to try and make this game, and the first thing we tried to figure out was exactly what makes a Marvel MMO. What makes an MMO specifically Marvel? And probably the biggest and the first thing that we talked about is that it had to have one heck of a lot of action. It had to have stuff being blown up, it had to have powers, it had to have fights, it had to have villains, all the kind of stuff you'd expect from a Marvel comic. I like to say, in fact I just coined this recently, if we're making a AAA MMO, then all of those A stand for action. Now alongside that action thing, another really core tenet, something that got me super excited when I came onto the project was this. You play as the Marvel heroes. You do not play as sidekicks to the Marvel heroes. You do not play as imitation, crappy, knockoff Marvel heroes. You play as the real Marvel heroes. You get to play Thing, you get to play Ms. Marvel, you get to play Spider-Man, you get to play Wolverine, you may even get to play Luke Cage. Who knows? And that was an extremely important part of the development process, and we're sticking by that today. Third thing that we talked about was we wanted to make sure that we had basically massive team-ups in the game. Those kind of epic confrontations that you remember from all those double-page spreads and event issues, most of which have been written by Brian, featuring all those heroes that you know and love. We wanted to get them all together in one space and have that kind of massively multiplayer experience. And then, of course, at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we told a great story. Marvel is storytellers, and this game features a great story, which is why we brought Brian on board in the first place. And we wanted to make sure that this is a story that you would feel comfortable replaying as well. So then if you put all of those things together, so we have action, you play as the Marvel heroes, you have massive team-ups and a great story. If you know anything about the game, you might be asking yourself, why exactly did we choose to make it a Diablo-like isometric game? Well, the question I would like to say is, why the hell not? Because frankly, in our opinion, action RPGs are awesome. And they're awesome for several reasons. Number one, action is built in. It's right there in the title, in fact. So there's action all the time, and quite frankly, in our opinion, hitting people never gets old. Especially if you're doing it as the Hulk, or as the Thing, or any other one of the Marvel heroes that we've got. Something else that we pulled from action RPGs, of course, like Diablo, is we actually have random zones, which is a real first for MMOs. The first time that one of our players enters one of our public combat zones, it gets randomized, which means that eventually it will reset, and when you come back into it, it's going to be different. Which means you're not going to get that MMO feeling of, been there, done that, I know where everything is. You get a real feeling of exploration. And it also makes the game really, really replayable. At the same time, we've put stuff into the game which we genuinely think is going to give you a good reason to team up. In this case, yes, that is a Sentinel. In fact, you can see that Sentinel in the demo that we have here on the show floor. And this is one of our open missions, where you get a chance to basically team up with other heroes and take down threats that you couldn't take down individually. And of course, speaking of those heroes, why would we want the Marvel license? Well, obviously because we get to take heroes for everyone of every stripe. There's over 8,000 characters in the Marvel back catalog, and we have only scratched the tiniest surface of them with the ones that we've announced so far. Our partnership with Marvel is obviously one of the key reasons why we're making the game in the first place, which is why I'm going to hand over to Mr. TQ Jefferson to talk a little bit about what we do with them.
Thanks, Stephen. So, for Marvel, we've been wanting a core MMO for quite some time. We've come close a few times, but never quite grabbed the ring. And one of the things that was very important to us in the future of Marvel, especially Marvel in games, was identifying the right gameplay, the right IP, and finding the right team that can realize a game at a quality level that we require now. And for this game, it was very simple. The right gameplay is action RPG, like Stephen said. Action RPG is Marvel's sweet spot when it comes to games. The variety of characters, the range of abilities, the depth of story, how they evolve, not just personally, but through their powers over time. It's really captured in action RPG format. And then the right IP, well, it's an MMO. This is the opportunity that we get to throw in everyone in the kitchen sink. So no one gets overlooked. It's just a matter of time and what the team can produce and how fast they can do it. And then obviously the team is Secret Identity at Gazillion. So when we were seeking out a partner, Gazillion and Secret Identity got it. They understood what our goals were. They understood what our requirements in terms of quality, in terms of execution, and they got the Marvel characters in a way that really made us feel comfortable, made us feel confident in the eventual product. So one of the great things about an MMO, and like I was speaking about that variety before, is that we can present everyone's Marvel. You may have started reading Marvel in the 80s, at which point Uncanny X-Men, John Byrne and Chris Claremont's great stories, and that team roster. Maybe you picked it up in the 90s, and Bishop and all those, that character, Bishop and Gambit and those characters. Or maybe you're just picking it up now, and you're wondering why Cyclops and Wolverine hate each other so much. We can explore all of that. The size of an MMO is perfect for presenting all of those faces of our characters. Right down from story to different costumes, different levels of customizability, maybe abilities that Cyclops has now are different than before. We have the option to explore all of that. And one of the great things about how we realize these characters is that our goal is to bring you approachable characters that will always feel familiar. So what that means is we're drawing from the film. A lot of people have seen Avengers. Raise your hand if you've seen Avengers. Applaud if you like Avengers. For some of you, that movie was your first experience of Marvel and these characters, and that's awesome. That's great. There's more to come. So we'll draw upon that. You'll see pieces of that. Maybe you'll see the costumes in there. Maybe you'll see just the way Thor speaks reminds you of how he speaks in the film. So yeah, you see the costumes right there for Cap, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. But we also delve into, we draw from animation, we draw from the comics, we'll draw from whatever is going to give us the best representation, the most mass representation of the characters possible. And we'll go deep. This is Uncanny X-Force. Not everyone knows that Wolverine has a gray and black costume and has a Wetworks team that actually goes out and sanctions people. But we do, and we think it's awesome, and we want to give fans what they like. We want to give you your Wolverine. So there's a great example of the translation from comic to video game. And all of that boils down to the desire to deliver to you true to character experiences. So characters that look like your Wolverine, that look like your Cyclops, look like your Captain America. That have moves that make you think, okay, I remember this comic book, or I saw this in the film. And just their speech and their powers and everything, just so you feel like you're owning a little piece of the Marvel universe. Another thing that is very core to Marvel, very true to what we're trying to put into all of our products is, and it's critical to our DNA, is a compelling story. Deep story. Some of these characters, Spider-Man's turning 50 this year, which is awesome. We've got these characters for half a century of stories, monthly stories. There's volumes and volumes of lore that we can mine and put into these games. And but we want to make the games approachable. We don't want a game where you need that 50 years in order to understand what's going on. In order to do that, you need a real writer, a real wordsmith, someone that understands how to speak to lots of varied audiences with various levels of experience with the Marvel characters. I think I sufficiently queued up.
I think we might have somebody who fits that description.
Really?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about story. You know, who we're going to get? Well, we're going to get this lovely grizzled man. Brian, tell us a little bit about the sort of genesis of the Marvel Hero story, because we have this image here speaks to a lot of what the game is about. If you haven't seen this image, by the way, it's on our t-shirts, but in sort of black and white format. You can pick up an awesome shirt with this design on it at the Marvel Heroes booth during PAX. But yeah, tell us a bit about how the heck we came up with the idea of Doom and the Cosmic Cube.
Well, you know, for years, me and T have been talking about the idea of a Marvel MMO because beyond everything he just said, the Marvel Universe was kind of born as the first, like, truly interactive pop culture thing. That when Stan Lee was bringing up the Marvel Universe, the bullpen bulletins and the old comics and just the way he engaged the audience, it made you feel like you were part of it. Like it was very unique. It was not done before, you know. So the MMO is like an extension of that. It's a continuation of that interaction that everyone feels part of it, or everyone feels a very close affinity. So we had to come up with a story that allowed characters from all walks of the Marvel Universe to engage the story on some level, or on any level that they wanted to. And so we came up with a story. First of all, we needed a bad guy. We needed a bad guy that could take us from the gritty streets of Marvel, my favorite part of Marvel, all the way up to the cosmic crazy god area. And the idea of the baddest bad guy, Dr. Doom, with the biggest weapon, the Cosmic Cube, as your bad guy that's literally just pouring plot all over the Marvel Universe seemed really intriguing to us. And me and Andy Collins, who's right here, is the lead story designer, and we started cooking this, and actually I wrote them like a script of that ended up being the opener of the game. I won't spoil it what it is, but it shows Dr. Doom doing something so awful, so shocking that you've never actually seen in the Marvel comics that there's no way you don't continue to play. You got to play now. Look what Dr. Doom just did. So we'll take the story from the gritty streets of Hell's Kitchen and take you all the way through every corner of the Marvel Universe as you chase down clues and weapons and characters all the way up to whatever Dr. Doom is up to with his Cosmic Cube.
So one thing we're really excited about is, you know, continuing the partnership. The awesome thing about an MMO is that as soon as we launch, we're not done, right? So we get to continue onwards. And of course, Marvel is in the business of serial storytelling. They've been doing it for over 50 years. So, I mean, Brian, you know, my next slide, you know, hopefully speaks to your heart, as it's another plug for
thank you.
all new X-Men.
God bless you. On sale in November.
Do you want to maybe say anything about characters from all new X-Men, or situations? I mean, are you looking forward to the possibility of crossing over between the comics and the?
Oh, you know, this is where it gets good, because Marvel is its own studio, Marvel is its own licensor, so it's not like one of those things where someone just sells their license to some game company and you're on your own, guys, good luck. And we're all involved. We're all like, so I get to come to, first of all, the real reason they hired me is I come see them every couple of months and I tell them what's going to happen in the comics in 6 months, and they'll go, awesome. That's really why I got hired. But truthfully, we, you know, as some of you, if you're into your comics know, that Marvel's about to engage in a giant situation called Marvel Now, where almost every single book in the Marvel Universe is going to alter dramatically, and with all new creative teams and all new stories that launch our characters into whole new situations. I've known about it for about a year and a half. I've told them about it for about a year and a half, so they are prepared to act accordingly, and that's great, because as the MMO grows and grows, It will grow with the movies, with the TV shows, with the comics as they go. And there's all kinds of opportunities for interaction and co-opting story and being part of, making the events more than just events in publishing or the events in movies, but and events on all kinds of formats, completely based on character and story. So
I just found out about it like an hour ago, so they never tell me anything.
Yeah, we are thinking ahead. Some of you guys might have been excited as we were. I've been at Gazillion twice for weird reasons, but it was probably about it was literally the first week I was on the job, and TQ came down to the office with Javon Frazier from the Marvel marketing side of things, and they call this PowerPoint deck out, and they kind of they're going through it. They're like, yeah, so we've got Thor 2, we've got Cat 2, and I'm just like, yeah, I know all this. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm just like, what? So yeah, I mean, we may have possibly put Rocket. Also, the talking squirrel that likes to shoot people is awesome. So, mark my words, and TQ will back me up on this, and I'm sure Brian will back me up on this. Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be, I hope it's as big as Avengers, if not bigger. It's going to be pretty.
Well, it certainly could be Marvel Star Wars.
I was using that phrase, but I didn't want to.
Well, I mean, it could be. I mean, back like 30 years ago when Star Wars was this cool thing, it could be that. Not a prequel Star Wars, an original. The Empire Strikes Back.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about story, and obviously we've got Brian to write it, but we have to tell that story in some way. And the answer is that we do it through a method that we like to call. We don't do it this way. We don't do it with speech bubbles. I know, that might have been cool, but we do it this way with motion comics. And you won't be surprised, given that he's written everything else in the Marvel Universe for the last decade. This is another fine Marvel Bendis creation.
I didn't create your motion.
Well, but you did the hard work, putting Spider-Woman out there, and then later on we had Iron Man Extremist, and of course Astonishing X-Men motion comics. But this is actually the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time that a motion comic has been created originally and not been adapted from an existing source. Is that right? I hear that?
For the game?
Yeah.
Let's just say yes.
And then you can correct me after the panel. And now we're going to hand over to Josh, our art director, and also Mr. Motion Comics, and he's going to talk a little bit about the process.
So, I imagine most people are familiar, but so motion comics are comic art panels that with limited animation and voiceover and sound, so they're set at the time. So they're pretty engaging format to tell the story. We're working all original artwork being created, and we're working with a bunch of Marvel artists, which is really a lot of fun working with these guys. So we got Ron Lim doing some pencils, doing a lot of pencils, doing great work. Sean Chen, Sanford Green, and Matt Clark. They're a few pencilers we're working with. We also have Scott Hammett doing some inks, and on colors we have John Roche and Christopher Sotomayor are doing a lot of the color work.
So this is a process that's very similar to traditional comics, right? You start with pencils and then...
Yeah, it is very similar. There are some slight changes. Some of you might have noticed that in pencil drawings we didn't have backgrounds in there. A lot of the artwork is drawn in separate layers, which enables us to have things like depth. We can use depth of field techniques and have motion by having the characters separated. So it creates a little bit more dynamic scene that we can move by having these separate elements. So that is a little bit different for the comic artist to work with. So the process starts with the script from Brian, and then we go into the storyboarding in-house, where we work through the storytelling in terms of what's going to work. There's some limitations in the medium, and so we have to kind of pick like what are our shots going to be to tell the story over time versus on the page. And this is where it's a highly iterative process where we start with really, a lot of times, rough scribbles, which you'll see here.
I drew this one.
Yeah. Where we'll in meetings, we'll go from this, and it'll eventually become the polished comic art, which ends up looking like that. So it's quite an amazing transformation that takes place, and it's fun because we're working through the story, trying to tell it as compelling as possible. So it's a lot of fun. And then we take with the storyboards, we cut an animatic where an animatic is basically taking the pictures, putting them over a timeline with voiceover tracks, sometimes some music to get it all put together so we can kind of get a sense of how it's playing out. We have some 3D sequences and some 3D elements in there, as well as 3D camera moves to bring in more depth where we can as well. And then we have an animation studio called Sequence Group in Canada, where they take all the pieces we put together, the animatic, all the different layers, all this comic artwork, we send it to them, and then they put it all together in their software, and then we get it back, and we get to see the final product, which is pretty fun. Except there's one more step, which is very important, which is that we then it goes through a whole big audio pass, and I'll get Matt Group talking about that.
So yeah, for audio, I mean, like, you know, all of our storytelling, we want to get it as in line with all the other Marvel things that are happening in the universe, so Marvel fans will feel right at home when they jump into our game. So New Generation Pictures is doing our audio design for the motion comics. You guys might know them from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. They did all of the audio design on that. So, you know, the way that they treat their voice, will so you guys will feel right at home. So, also, they do a lot of anime as well. So if there's anime fans out there.
Yes.
Woo! You know,
And a lot of the actors are people know.
yeah, definitely. Also, a lot of our, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but it's
Sorry.
yeah, a lot of our voice actors are people who you'll be familiar with from Wolverine and the X-Men or X-Men
Yes.
Evolution.
Let's see if we can get these guys to show us their voice acting knowledge. So of course we have Wolverine in the game. Now, does anyone recognize this voice?
I'm the best there is at what I do. What I do isn't very nice.
Any guesses? Steve Bloom is correct.
Yeah.
From Wolverine and the X-Men, X-Men Legends 2, and anything else where we're bringing his voice pretty much.
Cowboy Bebop.
Another character who's actually playable here on the show floor. Who is this?
Yellow-loving, blue-eyed thing at your service.
This one's a little bit more obscure.
Brad Pitt.
Good guess, but wrong. His name is David Brevik. He's done the voice of thing for Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Avengers. Now this next one, I think even his name is probably a giveaway, so I'm just going to give you a face. But, wow. We have some fans here. I was going to say, you won't be able to guess from this video.
Feeling weak, like puny banner.
Slight giveaway there at the end. Yeah. Fred, of course, did the voice of the Hulk in Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Ultimate Spider-Man. And then we have this voice.
Well done. Now go fetch me an espresso.
Any guesses on who that is?
Emma Frost.
It is Emma Frost, and being played by Carrie Walgren, who does the voice of Emma Frost in Wolverine, the X-Men, and X-Men Destiny. So, once we've got voiceover, we've got motion comics, and obviously we've got the actual game itself. You put it all together, and it looks a bit like this new trailer, which I'm about to show to you.
Oh.
This is a world first for PAX. I would be lying if I said this was planned, but it just turns out to be the location that Brian happens to like, which is handy for us. So enjoy.
Hell's Kitchen. All I want is for this city to breathe free. Free of corruption. Free of crime. The streets of this city crawling with lowlifes. Costume criminals run rampant. For every one of us, there seems to be 10 of them. And all of it clenched in the thick fingers of the kingpin of crime. It's time. It's time to take the city back.
So characters there. Number one at the top, did anyone guess that it was Daredevil before he actually completed it? It sounded like he was really upset. Daredevil is voiced by Brian Bloom, who did the voice of Daredevil in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And of course, also in that trailer, we introduced Mr. Frank Castle himself. Showing here in his modern costume. Of course, like every other character in the game, he has a lot of other alternate costumes, so those of you who prefer the original old school style spandex, you're going to be happy to. And there's another character in there that you'll probably have to go watch the video again to catch. Deadpool. Deadpool's definitely in the game. We announced Deadpool quite a while ago. In fact, you can go see all of the announced characters at marvelheroes.com. However, there was one character who hasn't been announced before now, although Brian may have mentioned her in passing, so this is an exclusive here to PAX. This is a character who many people would probably say you could never care for, but Brian, being the amazing writer he is, managed to not only make us care for her, but he managed to put her on the cover of the new Avengers.
Yes!
Yes! Before we say anything, this is a lady who took down Doctor Doom, if I'm not mistaken. She's pretty serious. Of course, she is voiced, and we think we have a very appropriate actress for the role, so see if you can guess who this is.
Yay, squirrel time!
Wow, you guys are real good. That is great. Tara Strong is the voice of Squirrelville in the game. And with that momentous news, we are going to switch over to Q&A as you guys ask your questions about the game. I think we have some microphones floating around. I hope you do. There we go. Our friendly enforcer over there. Now, before we get to Q&A, I know there's some questions that you're going to ask us, so I'm just going to preempt them. Here they are. We're developing for PC with a Mac version coming later.
Yes.
Our release date is still to be determined. When it's done, as we like to say. David has 10 years of experience at Blizzard, so he's used to saying that. More seriously, we want to get this thing right. We want to take our time and make sure it's the best game it possibly can be, and I know no one wants us to mess it up. You'll be able to experience the entire game for free. It is a free-to-play game, as we've said more than a few times. And yes, we'll talk more about payment options before launch, so don't waste your time asking about those. And yes, your favorite character may be in the game. If not at launch, then maybe later. So don't bother asking about those either. With all that in mind, you can always ask why Bendis killed Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe. Does anyone have any questions? Put your hand up. Right down the front? Yes. And then I'm going to send you right to the back.
And then right to
I'm just curious if Deadpool will continue to realize he's in a video game.
Deadpool will definitely realize he's in a video game.
I think Deadpool even knows who he's written by.
One thing that's fun in our game is since we have all these awesome team-ups, we have this really nice banter system coming on where characters will talk to each other, and Deadpool is the only person who talks to himself, so.
So you said that you're not going to have you're not going to have, you play as the Marvel hero, so you're just going to have 5,000 Spider-Mans running around, or how is that going to work?
I should have put this one on the slide. Yes. David, why don't you take that one?
If that's what you want to do. Really, seriously, yes, you could. Yeah. So we're doing a few things to alleviate this, what some people see as a problem. First and foremost, there are hundreds of costumes in the game. And so even though there may be another Spider-Man on your screen, there's a good chance that they're going to look differently. Like we said, there's been hundreds and hundreds of costumes, these characters where you would even think that somebody that would be hard to make costumes for, like Hulk or whatever, you'd be surprised at how many actual costumes they have. And so that's one thing. Secondly, at any time in the game, you can switch which character you're playing. So you have a roster of characters that you have acquired, and then you can go ahead and switch to somebody else if you don't like what's on there. But you can also do something like, hey, I'm going to make a guild called the Bubs, and I'm going to run around with a bunch of Wolverines. We're going to kick some ass. That's going to be fun. So there you go, those right.
Everyone who I've talked to about this game, once they ask so there's going to be 50 Spider-Mans running around, then they go, but can I make an army of Hulks? And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Right here. No? Both.
So I know you said you're going to have so many costumes. What about also different hairstyles that each one had over the years too?
There will definitely be their hairstyles will be associated with a costume, and they will change too.
Did someone say Mohawk Storm? I thought.
Yeah,
that's a good look. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, write that down, Josh.
Yeah. we stay very true to their looks in comics from the different times. So yeah, things like hair will change. All the little details for each different look of the character change the different costumes.
I mean, there's nothing more exciting for me than walk over to the artist pit and see them working on some character and go, oh my God, that's so-and-so! And then we have loads of arguments about, we have to put this costume in, and this one, and this one, and this one.
But I must say, having just spent a lot of my summer rereading every X-Men book that ever existed, you may be remembering some of these haircuts better than they are. Some of them didn't age that well.
So I was kind of hesitant to ask this, but how similar to X-Men Legends is this going to be? Because I mean, there's a lot of similarities, at least in style and the way it looks like it plays.
Yeah, no.
X-Men.
Yeah. So it is. There are several answers to your question. First off, underneath it is kind of a hardcore action RPG. It is very much like a Diablo game, and it's got random loot and random levels and all sorts of things associated with it, stats, etc. So it's a true RPG that's quite deep. Then, as well, there's a lot of customization of your characters. So you know, your Wolverine can play different than somebody else's Wolverine and things like that. And then it's not just an X-Men game. It's not just an Avengers game. It's not just a Deadpool game. It is everything, right? And so we have the toy box is open, and it was like my birthday, you know, and we just get to play, and in some ways it's similar, but I think the final thing is that it is a true MMO, and so the best way to imagine it is imagine 25 to 50 people running around a zone in Diablo 2, and they're all Marvel characters, and that's what the game is like.
With less skeletons.
Sure.
Is there a
Not as much gore.
Over this side, maybe that lady over there who has a fist in here. Sorry, making this go on. I apologize.
This is awesome.
We actually, at Marvel, we get asked about X-Men Legends 1, 2, Ultimate Alliance 1, 2 all the time, and whether it be sequels or follow-ups to those games. And having worked on every single one of those titles, the one thing feeling that I got playing Marvel Heroes was it definitely scratched that itch. So I think it's that, but it's so much more than that. I think David talked about the customizability just for a second, but that's a huge thing. You know, there's such variety and such depth and such painstaking care for getting the characters right, like so many different versions of Wolverine, so many different versions of Spider-Man, or the Hulk or the Thing. So I think it's just if you like Legends and Ultimate Alliance and so forth, I think those are sort of scratching the surface of the depth of this game.
So this might be a silly question, but is there going to be a PvP element in this game? I haven't heard anything about
That is not a silly question.
That sounds like fun. That's all I have to say.
Wait and see. Maybe up there, a few rows back.
So, will the relative power of what character be more determined on, say, what the so-called level of said character, aka a maxed out Hawkeye could basically backhand a newbie Hulk or Thor?
Well, we gave Wanda a no more mutants power, which just kills everybody on the server. It's Brian's fault again.
Good idea.
It's a terrible idea.
First and foremost, it needs to be a game. We are going to represent power levels in a variety of ways. But we have to make it fun for everybody. If somebody's favorite is Daredevil versus somebody's favorite is Hulk, they have to be able to play together. And so there will be game elements to the entire thing.
I think the important thing is we're trying to make sure that every character feels like the power level of that character. So you really do feel like Hulk, you feel like Thing, and you also feel like Daredevil and Punisher, depending on who you're playing.
Hi, so great panel so far, I've really enjoyed it, but I keep thinking about the title that you've had, about how this game is going to revolutionize the free-to-play MMO, and I don't think you guys actually talked about that, so I want to ask you, how do you guys intend to revolutionize the free-to-play MMO?
Well, first and foremost, the game was designed from the ground up to be free to play. And so in a lot of ways, this is not your typical MMO. We get to break pretty much all the MMO rules, which is really nice. This isn't get a quest to go kill 8 wolves and pick 4 apples and skin 6 seals. I don't know, all of a sudden I've kind of combined WoW and Diablo in my mind there. I don't think, except for the apple part. And so we get to break rules like that. A lot of these games took a long time. They were big grinds, right? And it's like, I'm going to go to this section, I'm going to do 8,000 quests in this little area, and it's a Christmas tree, it lights up when you get there, and then you do all this stuff, and then you kind of go back and forth. We get to break that rule. The reason that originally that MMOs took a long time to play and level up, and you didn't know where to go, and it didn't direct you, and all this kind of stuff is because, well, you were paying a monthly subscription. Without paying a monthly subscription, we get to break that rule. We do whatever we want. So we're going to make an action game. So that in and of itself really changes what it is and what kind of game we're making, and that alone makes it a completely unique MMO experience. And then we're giving it away for free. And I don't mean just free like, hey, it's free to level 20 and then you really have to pay us money to get past that, or free, which some MMOs do, or free, but you have to buy these sections of the game or to access certain content or something like that. Or the only way that you can get that +5 sword, if we had swords, is from the game. It isn't pay to win, anything like that. We are going to really honestly give the entire thing away for free. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So I hear you mentioned Deckard Cain, about Diablo. We're talking about skill-wise. So, if I want to play the game, what kind of UI are you guys going to promise us here? Because if you sort of notice in games in general, we sort of cater towards more of an adult audience at first, and now it seems like games are trying to cater towards like anyone. So like, in Diablo, right? I want to be able to go east, I want to be able to that. Like, well, I'm not going to go east today. I'm Diablo. It's going to go west. Like, is there actually going to have actual directions, or just kind of just go, I'm going to attack Radaman? What kind of like UI can we expect? Is it we're going to be spoon-fed here, or we can actually have some challenge of playing the game?
So were you asking kind of about difficulty level? Or
just randomly, like with questing, right, with other friends, right? Is it going to be, go here, go here, go here, or is there going to be some actual brains to it to figure out what you're doing?
I made Diablo 1 and 2. I didn't make Diablo 3. I love exploration and discovery, so I'll leave it at that.
Maybe further down the front here, this guy.
How much are you going to be able to interact with other players? Are you just going to be beating up this guy on the screen at the same time as that, or are you going to be able to pick up Wolverine and do a fastball special?
Awesome. I can neither confirm nor deny that fastball special is in the game. There will be interaction. There's lots of things you can do. We have, like we said, these public events. Everybody kind of gathers up and cooperates. The loot that is dropped in the game is every piece of loot you see in the game is for you. I played with way too many people that sucked up all the loot when I didn't get anything. So everything you see dropped is for you, which is really fun. So you can participate in these events and get rewarded. Everybody can get individually rewarded. So there's a lot of cooperation, and so you can do grouping. You can choose not to group. You will see people either in your party or not in your party, in the same zone. We also have private instance areas that is just made for you and your party.
How much will the story be impacted by like which characters you're playing as, or by player choice, if at all?
Somebody else want to take this?
We definitely have like a linear story that each of the heroes will be playing through on their own. So it's not going to be a situation where there's a branching story or something like that. Whether we wanted to be able to take the best story that we can come up with and tell it to everybody, opposed to just 5% of the people who happen to make the right choices to experience that. So.
Yeah, this isn't a dialogue tree game. But, well, it's not. It's an action game.
Action dialogue. Is there someone down here? Yeah, maybe in the front row. Making this guy work way too long.
Hi, I've played a lot of MMOs over the years, and are you expecting this to be more like a deep game that a hardcore gamer can play, like I hate to use other terms like a WoW or Guild Wars, or is it going to be a shorter, like you get your max level on the weekend, like DC Online?
The level cap will take a very long time to get to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Second row.
Was there a decision to go with a more realistic, like Diablo-esque art style, as opposed to a cartoony Freedom Force art style? And why?
On the team, what's your version of Hulk versus my version of Hulk versus, whose Wolverine is the right Wolverine, right? So we have tons of debates about all of this stuff internally, and it's fun, and we try to kind of look at historically what Marvel has been. One thing, getting back to the style, is that we are more colorful and brighter than some portrayals of these characters in the past, because that's kind of historically. I've been a comics fan forever, and when I think of these characters, I think of these bright, fun colors. So it's not too heavy, but we're staying true to how people see it.
One of the things that we've done over the years is that there are many different. Every time a new artist comes in the book, he puts his take or his spin or his touch upon a character. So Spider-Man's basic costume may be the same, but the way people draw it changes from artist to artist, from book to book. And how we benefit from that is that fans have become very used to seeing very different or varying shades of a costume. Marco David Brevik, his Spider-Man has uneven lines in the webbing, which is very unique to that artist. So that allows us here to sort of take some liberties and build a look that's just going to work for us. And fans, I don't think will get bogged down in, Wolverine's hash marks are 2/3 up from his belt and 1/3 down from his shoulder pads, etc. Like, okay, 3 hash marks, we get it. So I think just the variance in the books has really just allowed us the liberty to build the characters as we think they're going to look best.
All right, maybe 2 more questions. So maybe the gentleman there with his hand in the air. That one, right there, looking at you. And then we'll come over this side.
So I had 2 kind of closely tied questions. First thing was about the trading system in the game. For items that you pick up and can trade, how can I, what's the scoping of other players that I can trade these items with? How do I connect with them? I'm kind of hinting at a question if you have an auction house or something similar to that. And then also with the economy in the game, with the currency you have of credits, I believe, is what you're using if I recall correctly. What is backing this currency so it doesn't devolve into a Diablo 2 style only item trading economy?
Wow, that's a deep question. We have a variety of solutions for attacking the credits, inflation. Who knows whether or not they'll work or not, but the fact is that we are an MMO that can update at any given time, so that will also help. We haven't talked about auction house. We will not have an auction house like D3 has an auction house. It will be very different. It will be much more along the lines of like World of Warcraft or other MMOs in the way that they do their auction houses if we did something like that.
no real money, in other words.
Yes.
And we can make our way over. This one, the guy with the hat here. Iron Man hat, nice, like that. Down here, sorry. Poor guy.
I have one simple question. It's like I played the DC Universe online. I played it on the PC, and I've also played it on my PlayStation 3. My question is it possible that this Marvel Hero games may also go to consoles as well? Is that a possibility?
I direct you to the top answer on this slide. Right now we're developing for PC only, with the Mac version come later. I mean, you know, anything is possible, but right now we're really focused on the sort of PC point-and-click interfaces. We are doing, you know, an isometric style game with a lot of fast action, requires a lot of sorts of things we can move around the screen, so it's kind of a very specific interface that's worked for a long time. So we're focused on that right now. But I should say that we're running on Unreal Engine 3, and that scales very well, so we're hoping that we'll run on pretty old laptops and that kind of thing. It's sort of our hope and dream, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we really do want to make sure that a lot of people can play. I think we can squeeze in one more. There was someone right there, not too far away from me.
So since you're licensing from Marvel directly, story-wise, you know, right now we're all about Avengers versus X-Men. So certainly down the road as we go into the next thing, if we had been releasing around the Siege time and we had hit this Avengers versus X-Men time, would we see a reflection in the game? So that sort of crossover as the big elements of publishing are happening, we're experiencing an element of that in the game as well.
Thank you for directing a question that I can put straight towards Brian.
Yeah, that's the good news. As he said, this game is constantly going to be able to update itself, and so when big things happen, not only in publishing but in the animated universe or the film universe, you will feel it, and certainly the audience will let us know what they want, you know, what they want coming. You know, and the flip side is what's great for me personally is that there, you know, so many fans of Marvel are so passionate about the characters and what they should be doing and how they should be dressed and what and now, just, all right, go do it then. You don't have to yell at us anymore. You can just, in fact, that's what I want on the box. I want to say, Marvel Universe, here, just leave us alone. And I think that, going back to what I said earlier about the interaction now is going to come from, this is just the basic ideas. Imagine once it's up and running, things that will come to us about how we can even, I mean, the possibilities, I'm saying this could happen, the possibilities of launching a story in the MMO that will then take flight into publishing and into other areas of Marvel. I mean, this is really exciting. This is like, to me, like a Marvel lifestyle product that I think can kind of galvanize the online community. You know, and I'm joking, but the message board community can now come in here and do what they're talking about while they're talking about it, while they're reading the comics, while they're seeing the movies. That's very exciting, and it's such an expression that only like Marvel Comics can do. You know, like that's what they do best. So that's why I've been so excited about this for ever and ever, and so happy to like see it like come to fruition. So, yeah.
Thank you, Brian. All right, I just want to say thank you to everybody who turned up here on the panel. I know they're all super busy, especially Brian, who's got to go home and return to his solitary.
Yeah, stare at a wall in my basement.
So thank you very much to everybody who came. Thank you very much. Just one more thing that I wanted to mention. We did want to come here and leave you guys with an announcement of some description, so I'm very happy to say here at PAX that Marvel Heroes is going to go into closed beta as of October 1st, 2012. So you guys, or some of you guys hopefully, will get a chance to play the game before anybody else. You can go to the website today and there's a sign-up box on the front page of the website. All you have to do is leave us your email, or if you want, you can go by the booth here at PAX and you can give your email address to one of the guys there, and we'll put your name in the hat. And we'll be doing the traditional, you know, beta process, beta, English. where we'll be gradually adding more people over time. But everyone is going to get a chance to play a little sooner than you might think. So thanks very much for coming, and tell your friends about it.